If you're struggling to lose weight or stick to exercise, you are definitely not alone. Our exercise approach could be sabotaging our results overall, and we're here to fix that and give you some solutions to really leverage exercise as a great method, one of the dial movers for losing weight and better health. My name is Adrian Wellman. I am a strength conditioning coach. So I'm really excited to talk about today's topic when it comes to strength training and conditioning, overall exercise to support our goals. And I am here with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Stef. I'm just going to have Dr. Stef introduce herself and really talk about what she's going to be sharing when it comes to some of the physiology around exercise and weight loss.
Yeah, so I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I do have a background in health coaching with a specific focus on the hormonal side of fat loss. So that does give me a bit of a different perspective, especially when we're talking about exercise as being not just calories out, as really having more of a hormonal influence when it comes to weight loss. And so that's what we're hoping to help people understand, is that it's not just about the calories and thinking calories in, calories out, and thinking about the hormonal influence of our everyday habits, what we eat, how we exercise, how we move our bodies. And so from that perspective, I'm going to talk about sort of two overarching mechanisms in terms of like exercise and how it boosts your body's ability to use sugar or glucose for energy. So yeah, I guess I'll just dive right in if that's
Yeah,
if that's
let's
okay.
jump in. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we have this one mechanism which is more dependent on the hormone insulin. And so insulin is, if any of you aren't aware of what insulin is, it is a hormone. It acts like a shuttle. So it helps to pull blood sugar or glucose out of the bloodstream. And it helps to bring it into our cells for energy. And so typically when we're experiencing issues around our weight, or we're struggling to lose weight, insulin is one of the first hormones I think about. It's sort of the foundation of the house. And so thinking about exercise through this mechanism, it's easy to see how important it is, right? So exercise makes your muscles more sensitive to insulin. So that's a good thing. We want to be more insulin sensitive. That means our body's going to respond to insulin in a more favorable way. And so this hormone, as I said, helps to bring sugar from your blood into the muscles. And that means your muscles can use sugar or this energy from our food more effectively. And so that benefit is really more insulin dependent or hormonally dependent. And so then the other mechanism would be it's independent of this hormone, but it still works at the level of blood sugar. So even without insulin, exercise helps your muscles to take up more sugar directly from the blood. So that's cool. So even without the help of insulin, it can help. And it's actually really interesting. Like your muscles contract, and then through a special enzyme, AMP kinase, it actually signals the muscles to grab and use sugar from our bloodstream. And I think that's so cool. So you have like this hormonal effect, and then this other effect that is independent of the hormone. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're using glucose or blood sugar to support the muscles that need it when we move our bodies. And so instead of it being stored or deposited into adipose tissue or fat, it actually will get utilized and used up and sort of support our energy needs, as well as to support our weight loss efforts. So really, in the simplest sort of terms, exercise helps your muscles become better at using sugar for energy, both with and without insulin. And I think that's really, really cool. And so I think about exercise as being important for managing blood sugar, but also, because it's doing that, we are also working towards health, as you mentioned earlier, right? Like leveraging exercise for weight loss and health. And how it helps with health is that, we are helping to prevent the onset of metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes, when we're supporting our metabolism through exercise. And then of course there's different forms of exercise that can affect this like blood sugar sort of disposal, and support insulin sensitivity. But those are sort of the overarching mechanisms.
Yeah, I think it's great to know it on like a deeper level. Understanding the mechanics or the mechanisms underneath is more motivating and more inspiring to do it. I just had a quick question for you on when we talk about exercise and metabolism. I get asked this question quite a bit from clients is, all right, well, should I be focusing on resistance training or cardiovascular? Could you just touch on like maybe the difference? I really think resistance training is a game changer. If you could just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most helpful forms of exercise that we can leverage because, not only are we supporting insulin sensitivity and helping the muscles, pull in blood sugar as I just mentioned, but we are building muscle, and muscle is very metabolically active tissue. So, what does that mean? Well, you can support that calorie burning, resting calorie burn both during and after the workout. And so not that that's going to have a really big impact, but over time, like over the course, of someone's life, we do want to have more muscles. It's going to help to offset or buffer some of these more age-related metabolic processes that can lead to chronic diseases of aging. So we have this effect on the aging process that's beneficial, but then we're also helping our body. I know this kind of sounds strange, but we're almost making our metabolism less efficient when we have more muscle. And so that's actually a beneficial thing to have. An efficient metabolism will not work in your favor. And so that's when I start thinking about aerobic exercise or cardiovascular training. If we do a lot of that and we're trying to lose weight, the metabolism becomes very efficient at burning energy. And that isn't always supportive of people's weight loss efforts. It can still be helpful for other reasons, cardiovascular health and certainly mental health. Like there are benefits there. In the context of weight loss, we want to be building muscle because it'll burn more calories, but it also is very effective at improving insulin sensitivity. And there's also a whole mitochondrial piece, which is helpful in terms of your energy. So mitochondria, like the energy producing powerhouse of the cell. And so that can be really supportive in terms of someone's overall energy level. So we have so many benefits that come from resistance training that it's hard not to, when you know all of these impacts, it's hard not to support people in terms of implementing resistance training. It just covers so many bases. And then I always say, sprinkle in the stuff you love. Like, let's lean into or prioritize training and then sprinkle in the other stuff. Like, I'm never going to tell someone not to do an activity that they enjoy or that they love. If they want to run, I'm like, cool, run. It's just, it might not be the most helpful thing in the context of weight loss.
Love it. Thanks so much for sharing. And speaking of that, like as far as what you love and prioritizing things, I couldn't agree with you more. Strength training, I think it's one of the things that we don't emphasize enough, whether it's for overall health or even in the weight loss journey. I think there's a lot of people that are like, I need to do more cardio or do more, just get more volume in, which for a lot of people could feel like punishment. So I wanted to take everything that you were sharing and just build on a little bit for those of you listening right now or watching. You might have not the best relationship when it comes to exercise. And this is something that I find a lot, whether it's with my clients or, family and friends that maybe just have a hard time taking it on, being consistent. And it's like a start-stop kind of cycle of things when it comes to exercise. So I think the starting place that I've really started to lean on this with my client calls and sessions is asking people, what meaning does exercise have for you? Like what kinds of thoughts, feelings come up when you think about exercise? Is it something that, maybe you used to love to do, but then something happened and maybe you just didn't feel as comfortable exercising, or it became something that was punishment? I grew up playing sports, and if we didn't play a good game or we did something wrong or missed a pass, we'd have to run laps. And it kind of could have an association with punishment. So there's so many different things to consider when it comes to exercise. And we do want to make sure that we are sprinkling in some of the things that we enjoy, or if you haven't really started or been consistent, find things that you love when it comes to resistance training or weight training, right? That could be body weight or using dumbbells or bands. The general recommendation that I'm always putting out there is starting off with 2 times per week, 2 or more really, but 2 should be the foundation, a starting point for most people. And this shouldn't be like a Monday, Tuesday thing or a Wednesday, Thursday thing. If we can, we want to spread it out. So ideally, if we're starting off with 2, we want to be doing 2 full body workouts, hitting the legs, and we're doing something upper body. We're pushing and pulling things. That's a great place to start. We feel like that's feasible, and it doesn't have to be an hour workout. It could be 15, 20 minutes to start. Really, it's about getting started. It's the frequency and the consistency of it versus the intensity. And I often say this to a lot of people, is like the perfect program done inconsistently is not nearly as good as maybe a poorly designed program done consistently. So really, consistency is the name of the game when it comes to exercise. And one other thing here is we just want to make it as convenient and as approachable as possible. Having it be fun and enjoyable, that's a place to start for sure. It could be rock climbing. That's a great way to blend in some strength if you don't necessarily want to do traditional weight training. So really consider these things, but then also when it comes to the location of it, try to make it as close to home as possible, or on your commute to work or back from work, or just make sure it's like within, say, 15 minutes from home so that it's accessible. So when time is a restriction for most people, that is most people's challenge. It might be yours, where it's often like, I just don't have enough time, or if I had more time, I'd exercise. Then make it convenient. Look around, find a facility that you enjoy. And if you're somebody that doesn't feel comfortable exercising, maybe just want to get things going, you can work out of the comfort of your own home. There's a ton of stuff you can do, starting off simple body weight exercise or very budget friendly exercise equipment at home where you can get started. And the last couple things that I'll mention here is, we don't want to go from 0 to 60. Like I mentioned before, start small, build your way up. And that's where this principle, we won't get into it too much right now, but the principle of progressive overload comes in. I invite you to look into that, but progressive overload is really all about slowly over time increasing the challenge to ourselves, whether it's with doing more repetitions, adding more weight, decreasing the rest periods between exercises, doing more sets, increasing the frequency of our workouts. But we want to make these small increases over time to keep challenging our bodies. Again, you don't have to go from 0 to 60. You don't have to go from nothing to this picture perfect, what you think or what you hear social media or on YouTube, what a perfect workout would look like. So those are some of the main things that I would say. And Dr. Stef, so maybe some things or ideas came up for you. I know we chatted about this before.
Yeah, I just sort of in terms of some of the other hormonal effects of exercise and how, someone might be able to tap into that by monitoring their sort of workout biofeedback. So when I say that, I mean experiencing things like breathless, burning, heaviness, feeling hot. Like these are signals from your body that there's a hormonal influence sort of, under the hood. So in particular, things like testosterone and growth hormone, these are hormones that we can leverage while we train when we are, and this kind of connects to what you were saying about progressive overload, when we are challenging ourselves. So if we're pacing ourselves and, we're really not pushing ourselves, which is easy to do, right? Because it doesn't feel great. And so there's a tendency when we're training to not tap into these hormonal systems that can really support our weight loss efforts. And so in order to do that, I encourage people to try to listen to their body while they're training and think about one, not all four of them, but certainly thinking about, am I feeling breathless? Is there a burning in my muscles? Does it feel heavy and hot? Like these are just hormonal body clues about the hormonal underpinnings that we can be monitoring, right? So I think that's just like an interesting way of connecting what you were saying to these hormones is we can progressively overload and maybe that would be a way of monitoring that, right? So if we're going to try to do more sets without rest, then, we might be thinking more about that breathless component. But either way, I don't want people to be pushing themselves through pain or to push beyond what they're capable of or to injure themselves. It's just more about being able to monitor, like, am I pushing myself hard enough? So this kind of just helps to bridge that gap if it's helpful for some people. But certainly one of those, components, and Adrian, you'll have to tell me if I'm wrong about this, but, we're not trying to increase the length and increase the reps and increase the weight and increase the let's say that the time that we're training, if we're doing like 45 seconds at a time, like we're not trying to do all those things. We just kind of want to pick one, right? And so we don't overdo it. Okay, cool. That's what I was thinking as well.
Unless you're a high performance athlete and where you are trying to what we call overreach and really pass a certain boundary so that we get a certain response, but that's well-trained individuals. But for a lot of people, maybe that's why they've stopped. So if you're the type of person that has tried to increase all these things, that might be a reason why you've shied away from exercise or stopped and started in the past, is because of trying to do too much too soon and feeling like it should look a certain way or you need to work out harder. And oftentimes when we're just focusing on the outcome of I've got to burn more calories or it has to be a more challenging workout, that enjoyment factor and sustainability of it might not be there. And maybe we hurt ourselves or we're just too exhausted and we have this like, well, I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm running around like crazy for work or with my family. I don't have the energy capacity to do that hard, intense workout that I built myself up to before. I can't get back to that. So I'm just going to wait until tomorrow or next week or next month. So I think that's an important piece. What you said with the burning, the breathlessness, the hot and heavy, great way to look at it. I always say to clients, like, we're going for about a 7 out of 10 challenge. We want it to be uncomfortable, some discomfort. We need to challenge ourselves. That's part of it. But the no pain, no gain mentality is not something that I promote or preach. And the one other thing that I wanted to mention here is step one, show up. Get your runners on, get your workout gear on, show up to your home gym or the fitness class or rock climbing wall. That is number one, and get started. And then step number two is challenge yourself a little bit. So to get that hormonal adaptation that you've been talking about, Dr. Steph, and get the most out of your time, but again, show up, and it's about gradually increasing within the session and over time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that no pain, no gain is not what we're looking for here. We don't want people to hurt themselves or to get into a position where they start to associate exercise with punishment, right? So I really like that you brought that up. It's an important piece.
Thanks. I've been doing some reflecting myself, and I've lost some of the fun of the training. Instead of setting some fun training goals and working on technique and certain movement patterns and some explosive movements, kettlebell swings and barbell work, like Olympic type lifts, I think we can find some fun in gamifying it a little bit. And I think we always need to come back to that. How do I make this pleasurable so that there's a pull to do the activity? So we make it more attractive, because then we're more likely to be consistent if those kind of short-term rewards and benefits are there, as opposed to just doing it for long-term health or this weight loss goal, which might take a little bit of time, which should take a little bit of time. So patience is definitely a virtue, and focusing on how do we make each session and workout a little more enjoyable. I think that's important.
Yeah, and if I am thinking about somebody who maybe is listening and has either never exercised before, thinking about exercise, maybe they've joined a gym before but they weren't consistent. Maybe they're thinking, I don't necessarily want to start lifting really heavy right now. And of course, body weight is a form of resistance training, right? So I do want to mention that. So it can start there. Is there, are there some resources that you can think of that's somebody can just in order to kind of like do some stuff at home, let's say, if that's what they're thinking about. I know working with a lot of people as a health coach for fat loss, this came up a lot where people aren't comfortable going to a gym or they just don't have the time, they want to work out at home. And so having a workout program or something at home that they could access was really, really important. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, first and foremost, I would love for us to support individuals. If you have any questions and you don't know where to start, reach out to us, because everybody's going to have a different starting point. I think the internet is an amazing thing. There's a plethora of resources, but it can get confusing. There's a lot of stuff out there saying, don't do this, you're doing it wrong, do this, and it can be very complicated. The number one thing I would say is look for full body workout, where ideally when you're starting off, and again, there's usually like level one beginner, where you can start, where you're doing, say, body weight squats, a lower body type movement where you're doing squatting mechanics as if you're sitting into a chair. Then something where we're doing a pushing exercise. It could be a push-up, it could be a TRX or suspension push-up, a banded chest press, dumbbell chest press where we're pushing forward, and something where we're pulling. We want to balance out that pushing and pulling. Oftentimes we negate or don't think about the pulling. We're doing a lot of pushing because it's easy to do, say, an incline push-up or a push-up on the ground, but we want to be doing pulling. So I just want to give everybody here, I want to give you some of the background for a simple full body workout would be, say, 3 movements where we're doing lower body, squat, lunge, something like that, or a deadlift, and then doing a pushing and a pulling exercise. And you can sprinkle in some kind of a core exercise like a plank, something where we're getting the torso, the glutes, and the core activated. That's what you'd want to look for, but definitely reach out to us. And I've got plenty of resources that I can share, some simple free workouts that you can do that are full body.
That's perfect. Great. I love that you addressed the push pull and the different things that people can look for. It is an overwhelming place, and there's a lot of people who say do this, don't do this, and then somewhere else will say the opposite. So it is helpful to just kind of have a general overview of what to look for in terms of a full body workout. And to your point, it doesn't have to have 8 movements. It could be 3, and 3 well-rounded sort of compound movements where you're engaging multiple joints at the same time with or without weight. And you can get a lot accomplished in a little bit of time, especially if you are challenging yourself. Like you said, a 7 out of 10, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. The traditional sort of not, let's say, non-sexy moves work. And so there's a pull, and I've certainly been pulled into these like really sexy workout programs, right? So it's easy to get drawn in. And so what you covered makes me feel confident that the basics work for a reason, because they're just very effective.
The basics do work, and the basics work mainly because I think people are more consistent with it too when it's not complicated. And it's again about the frequency and the consistency of it. And then, Steph, the one thing that I didn't mention, we didn't really talk about too much on this call, I believe, was when we are recording and tracking things, we're writing things down, and we're not trying to change up every single time. We want to be doing the same movements, but then increase the load or maybe add a rep in. We don't want to be doing 100 reps, but if I was going to give people rep range, between 8 to 12 is kind of the rep range I would say. I think a lot of us are under challenging ourselves doing 15, 20, 25 reps with weights that are way lighter than we should be using. 1 pound, 3 pound weight for lower body, when we walk upstairs, we're lifting a lot more than that. So when we are recording things, we write it down, we use an app, we track everything, record it all. Then next time you can come back, okay, great. I did a squat body weight. Now I'm going to add in, I've got 10-pound dumbbells. I can hold one by my chest and I can do 10 pounds. And then do that, making sure we're getting that 7 out of 10, or like you mentioned, the burning, the breathlessness, or the hot and heavy. And just keep coming back to that principle of progressive overload. If you're slowly increasing every time, you really can't go wrong. So again, definitely reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll also provide a resource or link in the description for more information on getting started with some sort of training. And now I know we've shared a lot of information, the physiology, getting started, and all that jazz. We're just going to summarize. We're going to wrap it up. Dr. Stef, can you just share just kind of some of the high level points for people to walk away with from the metabolism, exercise physiology side of things?
Absolutely. In terms of the hormonal underpinnings, right, of exercise, I really think about insulin and how exercise makes us more insulin sensitive, which means that can really help regulate our blood sugar levels. So we have the hormonal influence in terms of regulating our insulin and our blood sugar levels. We've got this metabolically active tissue that we're supporting and facilitating, which can increase that resting metabolic rate that's going to be supportive. And then we also we didn't talk about a lot, but a psychological effect of exercise that can certainly feed into motivation and help manage anxiety and stress that can lead to certain habits that can sabotage our weight loss efforts. And then there's also the energetic effects, and people, even though it feels counterintuitive, because when we're training, we might feel tired, but over time, exercising gives us more energy. And that's happening at the level of the mitochondria. Combining different types of exercise is the most effective way to leverage all these different systems and these hormonal effects. And then you'll talk now in terms of the consistency piece and sort of where to get started. But I think those are the key takeaways from my, at least from my perspective.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's so important for us to have that understanding of the why and the mechanics of it, so we have a little bit more weight behind the actual activity itself. As far as the application of it all, start small, 2-3 times per week, doing full body. It could be short, build from there. Make it as convenient as possible, whether it's at home, on your way to and from work, or things that you do each day. So it's within, like, say, 15 minutes, or it's not far off your path. Gradually increase things over time. That's an effective thing to make sure we're getting results. And last but not least, I think it's important to make sure that we have a plan. We make a commitment, we put in our calendar, we have that time blocked off. It's self-care, like Dr. Stef was saying. Even if we feel we're a bit low on energy, make that a little bit of time to get some exercise in, because that's going to increase the size of our battery pack. It's going to build our confidence. I really do think exercise is a keystone habit, that when we exercise, we're more likely to eat a little bit better, we get better sleep, we maybe get a bit more stretching and mobility in, and it just makes things that much better overall. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to myself or Dr. Stef. And we have one other invitation, is check out our a weight loss personality quiz. It's going to give some great direction as far as what could be some of the things that are challenging you, that are maybe slowing down some progress, and you'll get actionable tips on what to do. And the quiz is only 3 minutes. There's no cost to it. Until next time, on behalf of Dr. Stef and I, thanks so much for tuning in and watching and learning today, and see you soon.